Maria Ressa, welcome. Your book is called How to Stand Up to a Dictator. How would you assess the state of democracy in the Philippines under current President Bongbong Marcos? Is it better or worse?
We are at a strange moment in time where 37 years after a people power revolt ousted the Marcos family. It was Ferdinand Marcos, the father, a kleptocrat who stole $10 billion. 37 years later, his son, his namesake, Ferdinand Marcos Jr., was overwhelmingly elected president. And strangely enough, the previous administration had set the bar so low that we've actually improved. But where we move forward, that now becomes the second President Marcos's goal, and he has a lot to, he is personally trying to vindicate his family name. And you know, this phrase we use in the Philippines, never again, except in the Philippines, we're back again.
We're back again, it's happened. Is it possible to have free and fair elections in countries where there are a lot of Facebook or TikTok users? Or are campaigns like Stop the Steal inevitable in places like these?
Great question. By design, lies spread at least 6 times faster than facts on social media. So imagine you tell your child, lie, I'm going to reward you. And then you tell your friends, lie all the time, I'm going to reward you. That is the value that has turned our entire system globally upside down. Because when you reward lies, you take away the checks and balances. You take away a shared reality. And you know, these 3 senses I've said over and over, if you don't have facts, you can't have truth. Without truth, you can't have trust. Without these 3, you have no shared reality. You can't solve any problem, let alone climate change. You cannot have democracy. So go one step further. If you do not have integrity of facts, you can't have integrity of elections. If you are being insidiously manipulated, where is the line when you lose free will? If we look at all of the studies, when humans are being used like Pavlov's dogs, it's coming in through our emotions to change what we think and ultimately the way we act.
That sounds very much like no, we can't have free and fair elections in this heavily social media dominated age. What can be done then to bring them back?
Oh, I think you just have to look at the Philippines as an emblematic example, right? Part of the reason Marcos has won again is because information operations aimed to change the meaning of Marcos began in 2014. You know, not coincidentally, the same time that Russian disinformation began attacking Crimea and changing the narrative. Those are the same meta-narratives used by Russia to invade Ukraine itself last year in 2022. So let me answer your question, what can be done, right? In the book, and again, part of it is exhausting. Part of it is living through it and then having to wake up every day in the trenches and fighting again. Long term, it's education. Technology, data is a new language, and old power, governments, journalists, people did not understand its impact. So education long term. Medium term, legislation. We need laws to protect us as both as consumers and as citizens. You know, like we're in this building, there are building codes to make sure that the building is not going to fall down on us. There's nothing like that. Chris Wiley, the Cambridge Analytica whistleblower, we were having dinner on the sidelines of UNESCO, and he was pointing out, he said, his toaster has more laws before it can get to his apartment than social media, right? This extremely powerful, godlike technology that has insidiously manipulated us. So legislation. In the short term, it is just us. It's why I'm talking to you. It is why I feel like Cassandra and Sisyphus combined, because we need to realize, 1, we are being manipulated. 2, it is a combination of violations of, you know, everyone talks about content moderation like it's a speech issue. It isn't. It's an algorithm issue. An algorithm is an opinion in code. It is a tech issue. So right now we need to figure out, we need to tell our people how tech behaves. We need to do more tech stories that aren't just about what tech says. And then we need to become citizens, not users.
What do you think the role of personal responsibility for voters is, like in this day and age? Does that even exist? We used to have this adage, you get the government that you deserve. Is that true?
No longer, unfortunately. I mean, in the Philippines, this is a debate that we had, right? Is it the fault of our people who were manipulated, enabled by Facebook, manipulated by power? You go into the poorest areas of Manila, the capital in the Philippines, and we talked to some of these people who voted for Marcos. One of them is a mother whose son was killed in the drug war, and many of them believed that if they voted for Marcos, they would get gold. And our reporter asked, so why? Oh, I watched it on YouTube. When fact and fiction merge and lies become facts, a totalitarian wins, a dictator wins, because the way you control people is by controlling their sense of reality. In the book, I talk about an end to impunity of the people killed in the drug war in the Philippines of the Duterte administration, but I also ask for an end to impunity of Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook.
In an ideal world, would Mark Zuckerberg be criminally liable? Do you think he should go to jail?
Both the United Nations and Facebook, Meta, sent teams to Myanmar to investigate the impact of Facebook on genocide. And both groups came back saying that it enabled genocide. Nothing fundamental was changed. No one was held accountable. It is up to the justice system to figure out culpability, and that's the problem at this time period, right? It allows impunity, and so evil continues. And I've gone as far in the past as saying that I understand I'm a CEO of a company, right? And in America, shareholder values, but there's also multi-stakeholder approaches. So it almost feels like these companies use as an excuse maximum shareholder profit, where they forget that there's a line between amoral, immoral, and evil. I would say genocide goes towards evil.
I think most people would, yes.
Oh, did I mention we're still partners with Facebook? That's because you have no choice. Right? This is a distribution platform if you're a news organization.
You've talked about accountability. You've also talked about not really being able to walk away from Facebook because no one is able to. Have you heard from Mark Zuckerberg at all since you've written your book?
No, not at all. Although, I have friends inside Facebook, but it's funny, the tech backlash has started, right? And companies now, more than ever, it hasn't laid off this many people in the tech industry, which hopefully means good things to other industries, because then these people who understand tech can then merge into societies. We need to bring that expertise into other things, including into legislation. I think what we've seen over and over and over is the technology companies focus on a libertarian view of free speech. These are primarily white men who have never felt a time of vulnerability. Mark Zuckerberg has never lived outside of the United States. He's created something that could potentially be the best thing that could have happened. I know, I believed in Facebook, but right now it has enabled the rise of fascism.
Everybody talks about ChatGPT now. Do you see further threats to democracy as this technology evolves?
It's going to get worse unless democratic governments put the laws in place, right? And this isn't the tech lobby, and you think about this, compare it to the tobacco lobby in the past, right? In the last year, the American tech companies spent $70 million in America alone. And what are they saying? They're saying this is a free speech issue, that everybody has the right. Yes, everybody has the right to speak, but lies should not be spreading faster than facts, right? So without the laws in place and with the data you are feeding an AI, which is OpenAI. GPT-3 is that language, the one that takes it all in. And there are now new types of engineers whose only task is to feed data to it. Data that doesn't distinguish fact from fiction. You perpetuate the ills that were already done today, and you're perpetuating it in the future. I started talking about instances where when democratic governments realize that technology has evolved to a point that it is dangerous, they've put laws in place. And a perfect example is genetic technology. It's being used to try to fight diseases at the DNA level, but these laws were put in place because while we have the technology that is godlike, humanity doesn't have the wisdom of gods. This is what we need in our information ecosystem today.
I heard you say in an earlier interview that 2024 is the year that democracy will break. Do you still think that, and what do you mean?
Tipping point, right? So here's what's happened because lies are rewarded over facts, right? Digital populists, digital authoritarians, people who have no consciences, people who will lie are rewarded. So these illiberal leaders are democratically elected in different countries around the world. Once they take power, they crush the institutions of democracy. There are 90 elections between now and 2024. I was looking at the major ones. If nothing is done, if the behavior modification system continues, we vote in illiberal leaders, and the tipping point is 2024. And the primary three elections I look at are Indonesia in Southeast Asia, the world's largest Muslim population, India, the world's largest democracy, captured by Narendra Modi. He's been in power since 2014, and then the United States itself. January 6, 2021. Violence on Capitol Hill. No one thought it would be possible. When it happened, it wasn't a surprise to us who watch the impact of disinformation. January 8 in Brazil, right? Here's another one interesting thing. YouTube. We've been talking a lot about Facebook, but Bolsonaro's support base, and this is a study by Jonas Kaiser of the recommendation algorithms, the clustering algorithms that YouTube uses, essentially put the far right and all the conspiracy theorists together. They clustered them together. Groups that would never have met in the real world, groups that would never have been enlarged because they wouldn't have found common ground. The clustering algorithms gave them common ground. That became the support base that moved Bolsonaro from the far right fringe of Brazil to president and helped enable the January 8 violence in Brazil this year. I'll say one last thing about disinformation, because I think we still underestimate what that means. Yuri Andropov, a former KGB chair, said that, and this is a direct quote from him, "Disinformatia is like cocaine. You take it once or twice, you're okay. But if you take it all the time, you become a changed man, changed person." We've been taking it all the time since 2014. It's 2023. That needs to stop.
We haven't talked so much about you yet. How has your life changed since winning the Nobel Prize? Has the increased spotlight helped you, or has it made you more of a target?
I think it was an acknowledgement of the sacrifices journalists have had to make globally just to do our jobs. For me, it meant it was a vindication for Rappler, but for me it meant that doing the right thing is the right thing. Because for so many years, it felt like you were foolish to continue standing by these values and the mission of journalism. News organizations are so weakened today that we cannot do this alone, and we need civil society to work with us to try to reclaim our civic space, our independence, our freedom. Yeah, it's hard. I don't really answer personally, but go ahead. Okay, you ask.
Well, this next one is still going to be personal. You've mentioned that it's exhausting to wake up every day in the trenches. How do you?
I focus on the good. It's how I ended the Nobel lecture. You know, that these tech companies, because it's an attention economy, because it's an outrage economy, they want to keep us scrolling. And what they've done is they've allowed the worst of human nature to take over the information ecosystem. But I've been a journalist. This is my 37th year as a journalist. And inevitably, in the worst of times, I see the best of human nature. And we cannot let that, we can't take that out of the world. That is what has always saved the world. So I wake up every day and I go, oh my God, we have so many things to do because this is a time of creative destruction. All right? If the world has been destroyed by these tech companies, which we better do something about, what are we going to do to create a better world in its place, right? Better than what was there, more sustainable, more equitable, and more empathetic. I think that's the, you know, as the technology has tried to pit us against each other, how do we bring people together? I think the last part, the one thing I think it did do is it showed that regardless of country or languages, that we all, humanity has far more in common than we have differences. And that's the good that we highlight.
Maria Ressa, thank you very much.